Next, will you become a stay-at-home mom? The answer is no. Once I give birth and then I am done with my maternity leave, I will definitely be going back to work. So you will still see my corporate life vlogs as per usual, so don't worry about that. I just plan to continue working because of a few reasons. Firstly, financially, I believe that dual income provides a lot more stability, especially in today's economy. And I just don't feel very comfortable just depending on a single income for my family. And because we have an extra mouth to feed now, so I'm not going to take that risk. No way. And also, right, as I said, baby things and kid stuff, they're just so expensive, right? So just relying on one income, I think it's gonna be a little bit, tight, not very comfortable. And if we have dual income, right, then I would be able to give my child so much more, buy so much more, while at the same time also buying things for myself and still making sure that I live a happy and comfortable life. So yeah, I just think that money is so important in this day and age, and I can never survive just scrimping and saving and just getting by on just bare essentials. I think that will take out all the joy of my life. And so no, I definitely want to continue working. Also, another thing is that I worked so hard since I was young. I studied so much, went to get a university degree, worked so hard over the past few years to, climb the ladder at work, get promoted. I have put in so much into this to build my career. I definitely want to continue growing professionally because work gives me purpose, achievement, independence. And also another reason is that I hope my son will grow up seeing both his parents working really hard and getting the motivation to also work hard. I want him to know that nothing in life comes easy and then things fall onto your lap. I was definitely not brought up that way. I'm not from a wealthy family. So everything I've wanted in life, I've had to work for it. And I want my son to have that same mindset. And hopefully he'll understand that achieving things takes effort, whether that's in school or later in life. So after my maternity leave, my plan is definitely to return to corporate life right away. Next, what kind of parent am I gonna be? So I will be somewhere in the middle. I don't believe in gentle parenting at all because I believe that spare the rod, spoil the child. If you gentle parent a kid, he's just going to be so spoiled and so strawberry. I cannot. I definitely don't want that because I believe that children, right, they need their boundaries. So you don't just let them do whatever they want and then run rampant and run wild. There's going to be expectations, discipline and all that. But I also won't micromanage every single part of his life. As he gets older, he will gain more independence and I will just guide him whenever he needs me. So I'm not going to micromanage him. For example, when he's schooling, I won't be that kind of parent where I will come home and I'll be like, show me your homework for today. Show me that you have done all your homework. I want to look through your homework. I'm just going to leave him to it because growing up, my parents have never micromanaged me that way and checked on my school homework. And I really liked that way of parenting, and I felt that it gave me enough freedom to dictate my own study life and school life so that I wouldn't be extra pressured or extra stressed on top of all the pressures and stresses of school already. So I'm just going to follow this same method for my kid. I'm not going to be the kind of parent who will check on their homework, force them to do, 10 pages of an assessment book every single day. No. But we'll talk more about this kind of parenting stuff maybe in the future when he actually starts going to school. What are my biggest hopes for my son? I would say that more than just academic results or career success, right? I really, really hope that he grows up to be kind, respectful, and humble and not bully others. And also if someone bullies him, like in school, I really hope that he will have the confidence to stand up for himself because I think that kind of character and morals, right, is something that once you don't have it, right, it's game over. So it's very hard to teach, once they actually establish a certain type of character, lack of morals really. So I'm going to try and make sure that he grows up to be, kind to, let's say, the waiters and waitress, very respectful in your tone, just nice to people, helpful. Okay, I decided that I should give you guys a bit of context to all these that I'm saying. So I have just like a few random stories if you even want to listen, but yeah, I'll just say it. I was actually bullied briefly in primary school, and thankfully it wasn't very serious. It was more like some people will just say really mean things, very hurtful things, or where some people would take my pencil lead and break all my pencil lead into half, that kind of stuff. But the bullying kind of got worse when I was in secondary school because I did stand up for my desk mate who was actually being bullied by this other girl from another class. And when I did that, right, then that bully actually turned her target to me, and then she started bullying me, like when she sits behind me in certain combined combined lectures, she will take some deodorant and spray on my hair, or during combined PE lessons. And if let's say we play baseball, she will purposely run near me and try and bang into me. And when she walks past me along the school corridor, like she'll purposely brush shoulder and bang against me. And obviously with all these kind of things, right, because they are just such microaggressions, I don't think the school could do much anyway. So when I did confide in my form teacher back then in secondary school and said that, it was affecting me so much because it's kind of miserable, right? If I'm unlucky enough to be in that combined PE class with that girl, or in a combined lecture, and then I have to deal with all her nonsense when all I wanted to do was just be a student and just study, right? Then I remember my form teacher actually telling me to, not be a strawberry and don't be so weak, and then just like get over it and stuff like that. So I just thought to myself, like, OMG, is what's wrong with this bully, in a sense that why did her character turn out to be like that? Is it an upbringing kind of thing, or just I don't know what went wrong? You get what I mean? I'm going to try my level best to make sure that I do not allow my son to become a person like that, because I absolutely have zero respect for people like that, or for people who act like that, because I believe that being young and being in your teens does not give you the right to act in a way that is like despicable and just morally reprehensible, in a sense. Additionally, when I talk about making sure that my son grows up to be a very kind and respectful person, such as even to waiters and waitresses when he's outside eating, it's because I did have some friends that I hung out with in my early 20s. So those friends of mine, right, they were already in their late 20s, if I'm not wrong. And I saw the way that they treated service staff at restaurants or places where we went to eat together. Like the way she would speak to these service staff, the tone is just so rude, so entitled. And the thing is that she was actually getting married and about to have a kid already. So I was like, can you imagine your child seeing you treat service staff like that, and then they will emulate you and think that it's actually okay or acceptable to be this rude and entitled towards other people? So the thing is, I'm no longer friends with them. Also, right, this is just something really random, but a few days ago, when my husband and I were walking home from the car park, we actually bumped into this neighbor of ours. I mean, she's not a direct neighbor of ours. She stays in, I think, the next block or something. But we were all like downstairs, right, and we crossed paths as we are walking from the car park. And her domestic helper, was pushing the stroller and carrying one baby. That lady herself was carrying her toddler. She has two kids, right? And the entire time as they were walking in front of me, that lady, who is presumably in her 30s or something, she was just screaming and shouting at her domestic helper. I think she was just really raging at her helper for, I don't know, being too slow or not careful enough with her children or something like that. I'm not sure about the context, but she was just shouting at the domestic helper non-stop in front of her children, and she was saying really mean things like, these are my children, and so I want you to be more careful with them because these are not your children. If it's your children, I don't even care. Stuff like that. So she was saying all this while shouting at the top of her lungs towards the domestic helper in front of the kids. Then I'm just like, what kind of example are you setting for your kids, that you have poor anger management and you are giving them the message that it's okay to actually shout at people? That helper, right, is a human. She's not a slave, she's a human. She's someone that you employ. She's just being paid to do her job. So no matter how angry you are, I think that even if you can't find it in your heart to stay calm, right, why are you humiliating her by shouting at her in public where everyone else like me could see, and in front of your kids? I'm just going to make sure that I will never do this and be a good role model for my son, so that he knows how to, try and properly regulate his emotions and know that no matter how upset you are, it is never right to say such belittling things to other people, even if you are paying them to work for you. Another thing that's really important to me is having a really strong command of English, because English is an important global language, and I think good communication opens so many doors in life. But maybe it's because I'm someone who notices grammar mistakes really easily, but language has always been something that I value. It just really helps a lot in the way you portray yourself and the way you communicate and how people see you sometimes. Next, have I decided on a name? No, I'm still thinking, but I do know what names I don't want. There are certain criteria in choosing the baby's name. So firstly, I don't want a name that is too long, because can you imagine him writing his name in school for exams and all that, right? It's gonna be painful if the name is too long, and it's also too much to say out. And also, I don't want something that's very difficult to pronounce or spell. I don't want people to be mispronouncing or misspelling his name everywhere he goes, be it in school or when he's ordering a cup of coffee outside at the cafe. So I'm not going to try and make it so unique until people don't know how to spell or pronounce his name at the first instance. And I also don't want a name that other people might tease him about, because generally kids in school, right? Like especially primary school, secondary school, they're still not so mature. They will end up teasing some kids with names that are very easy to tease. So I want something that's like timeless, easy for people to remember, to spell. You can pronounce it correctly on the first try, but also not super common that like everywhere you go, there's always a person with that same name. Will I still travel after the baby arrives? Yes, definitely, because travel is something that me and my husband both love, and we hope to continue traveling, but this time around as a family. Baby is going to be very young, right? So we will only take shorter flights. I definitely don't plan on taking any red-eye flights with the baby, because last time when I didn't have any baby and I was not pregnant, right, I would get very disturbed when I can hear crying babies all night in the plane on a red-eye flight when I'm just trying to sleep and get my rest. So I understand how it can inconvenience other passengers. So I will not bring my baby on a red-eye flight, because I know people will want to sleep because they are tired and it's an overnight flight. So I won't want my baby to actually end up crying and disturbing other passengers. I would just rather choose daytime flights that are very short, so that even if the baby does cry a little bit, it's not as disruptive. Let's say if the flight is only 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, it's not as bad as going on, let's say, a 12-hour flight and then the baby cries the whole 12 hours. Then, wow, I will feel so paiseh, honestly, because like that's just ruining the whole experience for all the other passengers, and I don't want to be that kind of parent. And also because for me, there's no reason for me that like I must bring my baby on this 12-hour flight with me, or on this overnight red-eye flight with me. So if there's no reason for me to do it, then I'm not going to do it, because really I just don't want to inconvenience or disturb other passengers as much as possible. And one thing that's good is that luckily I've already visited a lot of countries all over the world. I'm okay with not traveling very far for the next few years, because I mean, as you can see from my vlogs, right, like recently I've just come back from New York City, Switzerland, Sydney, Fukuoka in Japan. Then last year I went to like Bali, Hanoi. A few years ago I also went to London, Brisbane, Melbourne, Gold Coast, and just a lot of places like Korea. So I think I'm pretty well traveled already, so I won't crave traveling that far for the next few years, so it's fine. But hopefully once the baby is a bit bigger, I can go and travel to other parts of Europe that I haven't visited yet, such as going to Paris, Italy, Lake Como, Norway, Sweden, Finland, see the Northern Lights. I think that'll be really fun. So that's all for my pregnancy Q&A. If you've made it all the way to the end here, thanks so much for watching. And if you're pregnant too, I hope hearing about my experience has been helpful for you, or at least reassuring in a sense. And if there are any other questions that I didn't answer today but you'd like to know, just feel free to leave them in the comment section below, because maybe I'll do another Q&A after the baby is born, since I will be on maternity leave. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!